The cleaning lady was cleaning the floor when the millionaire saw her pass by. With a noble bearing, she looked like a millionaire heiress. He stopped everything to meet her and made an unexpected mistake. This misunderstanding would change the fate of both of them forever. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us from which city you are watching us. We continue. The Crystal Ballroom at the Majestic Hotel was bustling with the highest society on that gala evening. The guests, dressed in outfits that cost more than a year's salary for an average person, circulated between glasses of champagne and conversations about million-dollar mergers. Rare orchids, imported especially for the event, decorated every strategic corner of the room, their delicate petals reflecting the golden light of the immense crystal chandeliers. Helena Schmidt, 23, watched all this with attentive eyes as she moved discreetly among the guests. Her beige uniform purposely blended in with the marble walls, making her almost invisible to that select audience. She was there to work as she had on so many other nights, cleaning up the excesses of that world that did not belong to her. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. What no one noticed was the way she moved, with a natural elegance that belied her role. Her gestures were precise, almost choreographed, as if every movement had been rehearsed to appear as inconspicuous as possible. As she bent down to clean up a spilled wineglass, she maintained a posture that seemed more like that of a ballerina than a cleaning staff member. Across the room, Elias Müller, the billionaire host of the evening, was chatting with a group of foreign investors. At 35, he had built a technology empire from scratch, transforming an idea developed in his boarding house into one of the largest data intelligence companies in the country. His story of overcoming obstacles was well known. The son of a maid, a self-taught programmer, he had climbed every rung of corporate life with iron determination. But that night, despite his polite smile and impeccable Italian suit, Elias carried an invisible weight on his shoulders. The recent betrayal of his senior partner, combined with a deep personal disappointment, had left scars that he struggled to hide. His eyes, normally bright and perceptive, revealed a weariness that went beyond the physical. It was at that moment that his gaze met Helena's. She was focused on her task, but there was something about her posture that deeply intrigued him. The way she stood up straight even while doing a task considered by many to be menial, the silent dignity that emanated from her gestures, all of this made him think he was in the presence of some eccentric heiress, perhaps a foreign millionaire, known for breaking social protocols. "Who is that woman?" he asked Raphael Munier, the event organizer, discreetly pointing in Helena's direction. Raphael, not wanting to admit that he didn't know everyone present, responded with the conviction of someone who doesn't want to seem uninformed. "Ah, yes, she's an international investor. Very reserved, she prefers to keep a low profile." The misunderstanding was planted, and Elias felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Genuine curiosity about someone. There was something familiar about that woman, something that reminded him of his own journey, even though he believed she belonged to a completely different world from his own. Determined to find out more about the mysterious guest, Elias began to move around the room strategically, always keeping Helena in his field of vision. He observed how she interacted with the environment, how she maintained a silent dignity, even in the simplest tasks. Her every move seemed to tell a story that he was determined to uncover. What Elias didn't know was that this chance encounter, born from a misunderstanding, was about to trigger a series of events that would change not only their lives, but also the way they both viewed the world of business and appearances. Helena, for her part, continued her work, oblivious to the fact that her discreet presence had captured the attention of one of the most powerful men in the country. The night wore on, and with it, Elias's curiosity grew. While the guests continued their conversations about business and politics, a much more interesting story began to unfold behind the scenes of that luxurious event. A story that would prove that appearances, no matter how convincing, did not always reveal people's true essence. The first conversation between Helena and Elias happened unexpectedly near the end of the event. She was discreetly arranging some glasses on a side table when he approached, pretending to get a drink. Helena's momentary nervousness was masked by her usual controlled posture, although her heart beat faster when she recognized the famous businessman. "These parties can be a bit boring, don't you think?" Elias commented casually, surprising Helena with the naturalness of his approach. She hesitated for a second, aware of her position, but answered with an honesty that caught him off guard. "Actually, observing people can be quite interesting. Each one tells a different story without realizing it." Her answer intrigued him even more. It wasn't the kind of comment he'd expect from a bored socialite, as he'd imagined her to be. There was depth and genuine observation in her words. "And what story do you think I'm telling?" he asked, genuinely curious. Helena studied him for a moment before answering. "That of someone who carries an invisible weight, even surrounded by so much brilliance." The accuracy of her observation disconcerted him. Elias was not used to being read so clearly, especially by a complete stranger. Before he could formulate a response, Helena continued her work, moving to another area of the room with the same elegance that had first caught his attention. In the days that followed, Elias could not get that brief encounter out of his mind. Something about the way Helena spoke, the way she moved, the way she observed the world around her intrigued him deeply. He decided to discreetly investigate her, not out of distrust but out of a curiosity he could not explain. It was then that the truth began to reveal itself. Helena was not an eccentric millionaire, but a business administration student who worked at events to help pay for college. She lived with her mother, Donna Clara, in a poor neighborhood, and on weekends she helped out in the small beauty salon that her mother ran in the garage. The discovery, instead of diminishing his interest, only increased it. Elias recognized in her the same determination that had driven him on his own journey. He decided to get to know her better, but now without the veil of false premises. 1. Saturday afternoon, to the surprise of everyone in the neighborhood, a luxurious car stopped in front of Donna Clara's salon. Elias, wearing jeans and a simple shirt, entered the modest establishment. Helena was there organizing products on the shelves, and for a moment she froze when she recognized him. "So that's your true story," he said, with a serene smile. That showed more admiration than judgment. Helena straightened her shoulders, maintaining the dignity that had impressed him so much. "Yes, that's me. No masks or misunderstandings." The conversation that followed was deep and sincere. Helena spoke about her night studies, her dreams of transforming realities through social administration, her dedication to helping her mother. Elias, in turn, shared his own struggles, the nights studying programming on a borrowed computer, the prejudices he faced at the beginning of his career. "I have a proposal for you," he said finally, "an internship at my company with a full scholarship." Helena's response surprised him once again. "I appreciate the offer, but I have to decline. I don't want to be seen as someone who got an opportunity because it's an interesting story. I prefer to earn my space on my own merit." Elias smiled, recognizing in that answer the same moral fiber that had guided him on his own journey. "What, if I propose something different? A regular selection process without privileges. You would participate like any other candidate with the same rules and requirements. What do you think?" Helena considered the proposal for a moment, her eyes shining with determination. "That does interest me. A fair chance is all I've ever wanted." The deal was sealed right there, among shampoo bottles and hairdryers, witnessed only by Donna Clara, who watched everything with a mixture of pride and apprehension. What none of them knew was that this seemingly simple moment would be the beginning of a transformation that would affect not only their lives, but the entire corporate culture that Elias had built. Helena's first day at Muller Tech arrived with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. The imposing glass and steel building loomed large in the financial heart of the capital, so different from the simple surroundings she was accustomed to. Wearing a blazer she had bought on sale and shoes borrowed from a cousin, she walked through the revolving door along with other applicants for the internship program. The selection process was rigorous, exactly as Elias had promised. For an entire week, candidates faced group dynamics, logical reasoning tests, and interviews with different managers. Helena stood out not only for her sharp intelligence, but mainly for her ability to find practical solutions to complex problems. In the final phase, candidates had to present a social innovation project to an investment bank that was a partner of the company. While most focused on complex technological solutions, Helena developed something different. A microcredit program based on community support networks, inspired by her experience at her mother's hair salon. The true social impact is not in the complexity of the solution, but in its ability to touch real lives, she explained during her presentation, capturing the full attention of the judging panel. Her approval was based on undeniable merit, ranking first among all candidates. When the results were announced, some whispers in the hallways speculated about a possible influence from Elias, but the numbers and evaluations spoke for themselves. Helena had won her place in the most legitimate way possible. The digital marketing department was her first destination as an intern. There, under the supervision of Marina Gauss, a veteran executive known for her perfectionism, Helena began to learn the behind-the-scenes of the corporate world. The first few weeks were spent adapting intensely. She learned about digital strategies, data analysis and project management, while always maintaining her characteristic objective way of solving problems. It was during a planning meeting that Helena had her first opportunity to show her true potential. The team was discussing a campaign to attract new talent when she shyly raised her hand. "Excuse me, but I think we're ignoring a huge audience," she said, taking a deep breath, before continuing. "There are thousands of talented young people in peripheral areas who don't even know they can work here. Why not create a bridge between those two worlds?" The silence that followed was broken by Marina, who watched her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. "And how do you suggest doing that, Helena?" "We can establish partnerships with technical courses and colleges in more remote neighborhoods, create in-person workshops, show that it is possible. I myself can share my experience." The suggestion sparked a heated debate in the room. Some more conservative executives argued that it could dilute the quality of candidates. Others, more progressive, saw potential in the idea. Marina, surprisingly, sided with Helena. "Let's test it on a small scale," the executive decided. "Helena, you have 2 weeks to develop a pilot project." That opportunity was just what she needed. For the next 2 weeks, Helena practically lived at the company. She arrived before everyone else and left after most, dividing her time between her regular internship tasks and developing the project. Her evenings were dedicated to college, and her few free moments were filled with research and planning. The project she developed went beyond expectations. It was not just a recruitment program, but a true social transformation initiative. It included mentoring, professional preparation, and even a bank of opportunities for the participants' families. Every detail had been thought out based on her own life experience. What Helena didn't know was that her actions were being watched not only by Marina, but also by Viola Allard, Human Resources Director, and one of the company's most influential executives. Viola had her own plans and ambitions, and the meteoric rise of a simple intern was beginning to catch her attention in a way that no one could have predicted. Meanwhile, Elias monitored Helena's development from a distance, through reports and comments from other managers. He kept his promise not to interfere, but he couldn't help but feel proud when he saw how she was conquering her place on her own merit. However, a shadow of concern began to form in his mind. He knew the corporate environment well enough to know that talent and dedication sometimes attracted not only admiration, but also envy and resistance. Helena's pilot project was presented on a Wednesday morning in the main meeting room at Muller Tech. The nervousness in her stomach contrasted with the confidence of her presentation. In front of an audience of directors and managers, she presented not only numbers and strategies, but also real stories that she had collected in her field research. "This is not just a social responsibility project," she explained, drawing carefully crafted graphics. "It's an investment in the future of the company. Every talent we discover in the suburbs is a new perspective that we bring to our business." The presentation made an immediate impact. The project was approved unanimously, with a modest but significant initial budget. Helena would be the coordinator, even though she was still an intern, a decision that caused a stir in the company's corridors. Viola Allard, who had remained silent throughout the presentation, approached Helena after the meeting. "Impressive. Dear, you have a natural gift for leadership. We need to talk more about this, and how about a coffee?" The seemingly casual invitation hid ulterior motives that Helena could not yet perceive. Viola was known for her ability to identify and shape new talent, but also for her ability to maintain control over promising projects. In the days that followed, the project began to take shape. Helena organized visits to technical schools, established partnerships with local NGOs, and began to assemble a team of volunteers within the company itself. Her dedication was contagious, and soon other employees began to get involved. Marina Gauss, his direct supervisor, watched with growing admiration. "You're transforming the culture of this company, you know that?" she said during a follow-up meeting. "I've never seen so many employees engaged in a social project." The initial success, however, brought its own challenges. Some people began to question how quickly an intern had risen to prominence. The whispers in the hallways grew louder, especially after an article in the company's internal newspaper highlighted the project. It was at this point that Viola began to take more direct action. In strategic meetings, she subtly suggested that the project needed more experienced management. In informal conversations, she left doubts about the ability of an intern to lead such an important initiative. "Don't get me wrong," she said during one of her many coffees with Helena, "your work is admirable, but perhaps it's time to hand over the baton to someone with more corporate experience. Think of this as a learning opportunity." Helena could see Viola's attempts to take control of the project, but she stood her ground. She had learned early on that dignity was not something that could be negotiated. Instead of confronting her directly, she focused on strengthening her alliances within the company and meticulously documenting every step of the project. One afternoon, while organizing some documents in the archives, Helena stumbled upon an old folder with the company's previous social projects. To her surprise, she discovered that several similar initiatives had been started and subsequently abandoned, all under Viola's management. The pattern was clear. Promising projects were absorbed by the HR department, gradually lost their original essence, and were eventually discontinued due to lack of measurable results. It was a subtle strategy to maintain control over initiatives that could threaten the status quo. Meanwhile, Helena's project continued to grow. The first group of young people selected through the program were already in training, and the preliminary results were astonishing, not only in terms of technical skills, but mainly in the impact they were having on the communities involved. Elias, even while maintaining his professional distance, could not help but notice the positive changes the project was bringing to the company. At a board meeting, when the subject came up, he made a point of emphasizing, "This is the kind of innovation we need, the kind that comes from people who really understand people's needs." What no one knew was that a storm was brewing behind the scenes. Viola had begun to articulate a reorganization of the social responsibility department, which would place all projects, including Helena's, under her direct supervision. The official justification would be optimizing resources and processes, but the real objective was quite different. Helena, for her part, was beginning to feel the weight of the growing pressures. The nights at college seemed longer, the tiredness more present. But there was something in her gaze, a silent determination, that suggested she would not give up easily. After all, it was not just a project that was at stake. It was proof that talent and dedication could indeed overcome social barriers. Helena's quarterly project report exceeded all expectations. Of the 30 young people selected in the A first class, 28 had already been approved in selection processes by large companies, including Muller Tech itself. The numbers were impressive, but it was the stories behind them that really made the difference. One particularly busy morning, Helena received an unexpected message. Elias Muller wanted to see her in his office. Her heart raced. It was the first time they had had direct contact since she had been hired. When she entered the CEO's office, she found not only Elias, but also 3 foreign executives. "Helena, these are representatives from the World Bank," Elias introduced with a slight smile. "They heard about your project and want to know more about the methodology you developed." The impromptu presentation turned into a 2-hour conversation. Helena explained every detail of the program, from the selection process to the post-hire follow-up. The attendees were particularly impressed by the reverse mentoring system she had implemented, where young people from the suburbs shared their unique perspectives with senior executives. It's fascinating how you've managed to turn your social background into a competitive advantage, one of the executives commented. We'd like to implement something similar in other countries. News of the international visit spread quickly throughout the company. Marina Gauss, who had been following Helena's development from the beginning, could not hide her pride. However, not everyone shared her enthusiasm. Viola Allard watched the developments with growing concern. Helena's success was beginning to attract too much attention, threatening her own plans within the company. For years, she had built her reputation by carefully controlling the flow of social innovations at Muller Tech. Now, a simple intern was reshaping the entire landscape. In a closed meeting with his closest team, Viola began to outline a more aggressive strategy. We need to do a complete audit of the project, question every number, every methodology. It is our responsibility to ensure that everything is being done within corporate standards. What she didn't expect was that her words would reach the ears of Chiara Torres, a junior analyst who had been directly impacted by Helena's project. Chiara was the daughter of a maid, like Elias, and had gotten her position at the company through the inclusion program. During lunch, Chiara looked for Helena in the cafeteria. I need to tell you something, but not here. Can we talk after work? The meeting took place in a coffee shop near the company. There, Chiara revealed Viola's plans to discredit the project. They're going to question everything, Helena. They're preparing a report to present to the board, suggesting that the numbers may be inflated. Helena listened to everything with surprising calm. Years of working at luxury events had taught her to maintain her composure, even in the most tense situations. Instead of panicking, she began to think strategically. That night, she stayed at the company until late, reviewing every document, every spreadsheet, every piece of evidence of the project's success. Her mother, Donna Clara, called worriedly. Daughter, you can't keep going at this pace. Mum, remember when you faced that crisis at the salon? How you didn't give up, even when everyone said it was impossible? I learned from the best. What Helena didn't know was that, as she prepared to defend her work, other forces were at work behind the scenes at Muller Tech. Marina Gauss, her supervisor, had begun her own quiet investigation into Viola's management practices over the years. Elias Muller, for his part, was watching everything with special attention. The success of Helena's project had awakened memories of his own journey, of the barriers he had faced, of the people who had tried to diminish his achievements. But now he was in a position to make a difference. In his office, late at night, Elias was studying two documents side by side, the preliminary report that Viola was preparing against Helena's project, and an old folder, yellowed with age, containing evidence of questionable practices in the management of previous social projects. His expression was serious as he took notes on his tablet. The next day, Muller Tech would wake up different. A series of events were about to unfold, events that would test not only Helena's resilience, but also the very corporate culture that Elias had worked so hard to build. Amidst it all, one question hung in the air. How far would someone be willing to go to maintain their power? The morning began with a corporate email that shook up the entire Muller Tech. A surprise audit would be carried out on all of the company's social projects, conducted by an independent external consultancy. The statement, signed by Elias Muller himself, emphasized the importance of transparency and corporate governance. Viola Allard could barely hide her discomfort during the emergency board meeting. Her plan to discredit Helena's project through an internal audit had turned into something much bigger and beyond her control. We need to be prepared for intense scrutiny, Elias told the board. Every project, every decision, every penny invested will be analyzed. This is an opportunity to validate our best practices and identify areas for improvement. Helena, for her part, received the news with a mixture of apprehension and relief. During the previous night, she had organized all the documentation of her project in a meticulous system of digital files. Every meeting was recorded, every decision documented, every result proven with solid evidence. You have created an exemplary success story, Marina commented, reviewing the files. It's not just about numbers, it's about real transformation. That's something no audit can deny. In the days that followed, the company experienced an atmosphere of veiled tension. Auditors circulated the corridors, conducting interviews and analyzing documents. Helena's project received special attention. After all, it was the most recent and the one with the most significant results. During her interview with the auditors, Helena maintained the same dignified demeanor that had caught Elias's attention that first night at the event. She answered each question with clarity and honesty, presenting not only data but also real stories of transformation. "What sets our show apart isn't just the numbers," she explained. "It's the way we build bridges between worlds that seem too far apart to connect." The audit team was particularly impressed by a detail that even Viola had not noticed. Helena had set up an emergency fund for the program participants, using part of her own salary. The fund helped the young people with basic expenses during the training period, ensuring that no one dropped out due to financial difficulties. Meanwhile, Marina Gauss worked quietly, gathering testimonies from employees who had participated in previous social projects. The stories that emerged formed a disturbing pattern, promising initiatives systematically defunded after being absorbed by Viola's department. Elias watched the events unfold with strategic attention. Each new audit report confirmed what he already suspected. Muller Tech had a unique opportunity to truly make a difference, but first it needed to face its own inner demons. One afternoon, while Helena was organizing a presentation for the auditors, she received an unexpected visitor at her desk. It was Sabine, Viola's former secretary, who had retired the previous year. "I need to tell you something," Sabine said quietly. "Something I've kept inside for a long time, but now it needs to come out." What Sabine revealed in that conversation would be crucial to the events that were to come. She had kept copies of documents that proved how Viola had systematically sabotaged previous social projects whenever they threatened to gain too much autonomy. "Why are you telling me this now?" Helena asked, trying to process the information. "Because I saw in you the same light I saw in Elijah when he first started," Sabine replied. "And this time I can't stay silent." The conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the hallways. The auditors had requested an extraordinary meeting with the board for the following day. The preliminary report was ready, and its conclusions promised to shake the foundations of Muller Tech. That night, Helena could barely sleep. In her small apartment, surrounded by post-its and notes, she reflected on her journey so far. It wasn't just about championing her project now. It was about making sure other people like her had the same opportunity to prove themselves. Across town, in her luxurious penthouse, Viola was also awake, planning her next moves. She hadn't gotten to where she was by being outwitted by an intern. She had one last trick up her sleeve, something she'd saved for an emergency. What she didn't know was that her past actions were about to catch up with her in ways she'd never imagined. The day of the extraordinary board meeting dawned with a different energy at Muller Tech. The main auditorium on the 30th floor, rarely used for smaller meetings, was being prepared to accommodate not only the board members, but also those involved in the company's social projects. Helena arrived early, wearing a navy blue outfit she had bought especially for the occasion. Her footsteps echoed through the still empty hallway as she organized her presentations and documents. The folder with Sabine's revelations weighed like lead in her bag. "Are you ready for this?" asked Marina, who had silently arrived behind her. "I need to be," Helena replied, adjusting her posture. "It's not just about me now." The auditorium slowly began to fill up. Executives from different departments, board members, and the audit team took their seats. Elias Muller sat in the center of the main table, his serene expression masking the tension of the moment. Viola Allard made her grand entrance minutes before the start, wearing an impeccable red suit and a confident smile. She sat near the front, exchanging knowing glances with some strategic allies. The meeting began promptly at 9 a.m. The audit team leader, Dr. Rafael Vasconcelos, took the floor first. His preliminary report was thorough, detailing the analysis of 5 years of Muller Tech's social projects. "We've seen some interesting patterns," he began, projecting graphs onto the screen. "In recent years, several promising projects have been started, but few have survived beyond the first year. The notable exception is the current program led by intern Helena Schmidt. Viola shifted uncomfortably in her chair as the auditor began detailing the inconsistencies found in the previous management of social projects. Documents had disappeared, funds had been reallocated without clear justification, promising initiatives had been abruptly shut down. The most intriguing thing, Dr. Vasconcelos continued, is the stark contrast between the current and previous management. Ms. Schmidt's project presents a transparency and effectiveness unprecedented in the company's history. It was at this moment that Viola decided to play her last card. She stood up, interrupting the presentation. "With all due respect, Dr. Vasconcelos, but I have information that can shed new light on this transparency." She pulled a folder from her bag, handing out copies of some documents to those present. "These are expense records for the current project. As you can see, there are serious inconsistencies in the figures presented." Helena felt her blood run cold. The documents looked authentic, but something was wrong. Numbers had been altered, dates didn't match their original records. It was then that Marina Gauss asked to speak. With surprising calm, she connected her laptop to the projector. "Interesting you should mention those documents, Viola," she said, opening a series of files. "Because I have the originals here, with the metadata proving when they were created and changed. I even have system access logs that show exactly when those changes were made, and by whom." The auditorium fell into a dense silence. On the screen, irrefutable evidence showed how the documents presented by Viola had been manipulated over the past 48 hours. Elias Muller stood slowly, his expression a mixture of disappointment and determination. "Dr. Vasconcelos, I believe we have enough material to extend this audit for a few more weeks. And Viola, I would like you to wait in my office after this meeting." But before Viola could respond, Helena asked to speak. What she said next would change not only the course of this meeting, but the future of Muller Tech as a whole. "If I may," she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness, "I'd like to present something that goes beyond numbers and documents, something that shows the true impact we can have when we give people real opportunities." With a gesture, she called forward a group of young people who had entered the auditorium silently. They were participants in her project, each with a story of overcoming obstacles to tell. Among them was Chiara Torres, now promoted to senior analyst. What followed was a series of testimonials that moved even the most skeptical executives, stories of real transformation, of dreams realized, of lives changed not only by employment but by the dignity that the program had provided. Viola watched everything with an increasingly pale expression. Her house of cards was beginning to crumble, and there were no more cards up her sleeve to play. The truth, the one she had tried so hard to manipulate over the years, was finally coming to light. In the days following the board meeting, Muller Tech underwent a quiet but profound transformation. Viola's departure was announced in a discreet statement, citing strategic differences as the official reason. In the corridors, however, the truth was whispered with a mixture of astonishment and admiration. An intern had managed to expose years of manipulation and sabotage. Helena, in turn, faced a new challenge, dealing with the sudden attention her project was receiving. Journalists specializing in corporate social responsibility wanted to interview her. Other companies were asking for presentations on her methodology, and even a university showed interest in turning the program into a case study. "How are you dealing with all this?" Elias asked over coffee in the late afternoon, breaking the protocol he had established of maintaining professional distance. "Honestly," Helena smiled, adjusting her cup on the table, "trying not to lose focus on what really matters. Every new kid that comes into the program reminds me why we started this whole thing." The conversation was interrupted by Donna Clara, who had been invited to a special event at the company. She watched her daughter with teary eyes, remembering the days when Helena studied between one client and another at the beauty salon. "Do you know what makes me most proud?" Donna Clara told Elias. "It's not her success, it's seeing that she's still the same person. The other day I found her organizing products in the salon like she always did." Elias nodded, deeply understanding the meaning of those words. It was exactly that authenticity that had caught his attention that first night, when he saw her, cleaning the event hall with such dignity. Marina Gauss, who had been instrumental in exposing Viola's manipulations, was promoted to Director of Social Responsibility. Her first action was to expand Helena's project, transforming it into a permanent program of the company. "We need you full-time now," Marina announced to Helena, as executive coordinator of the program. "This is no longer an intern position. This is a real leadership position." The news took Helena by surprise. "But I haven't finished college yet." "And it will end," Marina smiled. "Part of your new package includes flexibility for your studies. We want more Helenas in the company. Remember?" The transformation was not limited to Muller Tech. Other companies began to take an interest in the model developed by Helena, creating a network of opportunities that expanded organically. The small project that had started with 30 young people was becoming a larger movement. One particularly busy afternoon, Helena received an unexpected visitor in her new office, which was much smaller than Viola's by her own choice. It was Sabine, the former secretary who had helped expose the truth. "I came to say goodbye," Sabine announced. "I'm going to work on a social project in the Northeast. You've inspired me to do more." The two women embraced, sharing a moment of mutual understanding. Their courage had inspired the courage of the other, creating a domino effect of positive change. Later that week, Elias called a different kind of meeting, not in the formal auditorium on the 30th floor, but in the company cafeteria. Employees at all levels were invited, from the cleaning staff to the directors. "Muller Tech is changing," he announced, standing on a makeshift chair as a stage. "And this change is not coming from the top down, but from every corner, from all the voices that were previously unheard." Her eyes met Helena's in the crowd, and a smile of mutual recognition was exchanged. They both knew that this moment was just the beginning of something bigger. In Donna Clara's small salon, a new banner was hung. Here, a silent revolution began. Customers often asked about the story, and she proudly told how her daughter had transformed not only her own life, but the lives of hundreds of other young people. Helena continued to visit the salon on weekends, no longer out of necessity, but by choice. It was her way of keeping her feet on the ground, of remembering where she came from, and, most importantly, of showing that true success doesn't change who you are, it just increases your ability to make a difference. 6 months had passed since the transformation at Muller Tech. Helena's project, now called Limitless Horizons, had expanded to 3 different states, impacting more than 500 young people. The former meeting room on the 20th floor, once the scene of endless discussions about goals and numbers, was now buzzing with ideas and dreams under construction. One Thursday morning, Helena was leading a mentoring session when unexpected news arrived. The program had been nominated for the National Social Innovation Award. The nomination was not only for the number of young people impacted, but mainly for the unique methodology that combined professional development with social awareness. "This is the result of all of your work," Helena told her team, now made up of 15 people, including 3 participants from the program's first class. "Every story of transformation that we have built together has brought us here, but not everything was perfect." The program's success began to attract unwanted attention from Muller Tech's competitors. Some companies tried to copy the model superficially, without understanding its true essence. Others tried to attract the talents trained by the program, with tempting proposals. It was during this period that Helena faced her first major dilemma as a leader. A multinational company offered astronomically higher salaries to 3 of its best students. The offer was tempting, but there was one condition. They would have to abandon the social projects they had started in the communities. "What would you do in our place?" asked Lucas, one of the young men who received the proposal, during a private conversation with Helena. She took a deep breath before replying, "I can't make that decision for you, but I can share something I've learned. True success isn't just about how much money you make, it's about the impact you make on people's lives." The conversation was interrupted by a surprise visit. Elias Müller entered the room, accompanied by a distinguished-looking lady that Helena immediately recognized from business magazines. It was Sophia Moretti, CEO of one of the largest philanthropic Foundations in Latin America. Helena, Elias began with a discreet smile, Sophia came especially to learn about our program. She has an interesting proposal for expanding limitless horizons. The meeting that followed lasted 3 hours. Sophia wasn't just interested in numbers and methodologies. She wanted to understand the heart of the project. While Helena explained every detail, from the selection process to the post-program follow-up, Sophia took notes in a small gold notebook. "You know what impresses me?" Sophia commented, closing her notebook. "It's not just the efficiency of the program, but how you maintained humanity in every process. That's rare in the corporate world." Sophia's proposal was ambitious, to create an international institute based on the Limitless Horizons methodology. The foundation would provide all the necessary financial and structural support, but with one condition: Helena would have to travel to different countries to personally implement the program. "It's a unique opportunity," Elias said after the meeting, "but the decision is yours, Helena. The program will continue here, regardless of what you choose." That night, Helena stayed late at the office thinking about the proposal. Employees at all levels were invited, from the cleaning staff to the directors. "Muller Tech is changing," he announced, standing on a makeshift chair as a stage. "And this change is not coming from the top down, but from every corner, from all the voices that were previously unheard." Her eyes met Helena's in the crowd, and a smile of mutual recognition was exchanged. They both knew that this moment was just the beginning of something bigger. In Donna Clara's small salon, a new banner was hung. Here, a silent revolution began. Customers often asked about the story, and she proudly told how her daughter had transformed not only her own life, but the lives of hundreds of other young people. Helena continued to visit the salon on weekends, no longer out of necessity, but by choice. It was her way of keeping her feet on the ground, of remembering where she came from, and, most importantly, of showing that true success doesn't change who you are. It just increases your ability to make a difference. 6 months had passed since the transformation at Muller Tech. Helena's project, now called Limitless Horizons, had expanded to 3 different states, impacting more than 500 young people. The former meeting room on the 20th floor, once the scene of endless discussions about goals and numbers, was now buzzing with ideas and dreams under construction. One Thursday morning, Helena was leading a mentoring session when unexpected news arrived. The program had been nominated for the National Social Innovation Award. The nomination was not only for the number of young people impacted, but mainly for the unique methodology that combined professional development with social awareness. "This is the result of all of your work," Helena told her team, now made up of 15 people, including 3 participants from the program's first class. "Every story of transformation that we have built together has brought us here, but not everything was perfect." The program's success began to attract unwanted attention from Muller Tech's competitors. Some companies tried to copy the model superficially, without understanding its true essence. Others tried to attract the talents trained by the program, with tempting proposals. It was during this period that Helena faced her first major dilemma as a leader. A multinational company offered astronomically higher salaries to 3 of its best students. The offer was tempting, but there was one condition: they would have to abandon the social projects they had started in the communities. "What would you do in our place?" asked Lucas, one of the young men who received the proposal, during a private conversation with Helena. She took a deep breath before replying, "I can't make that decision for you, but I can share something I've learned. True success isn't just about how much money you make, it's about the impact you make on people's lives." The conversation was interrupted by a surprise visit. Elias Müller entered the room, accompanied by a distinguished-looking lady that Helena immediately recognized from business magazines. It was Sophia Moretti, CEO of one of the largest philanthropic foundations in Latin America. "Helena," Elias began with a discreet smile, "Sophia came especially to learn about our program. She has an interesting proposal for expanding limitless horizons." The meeting that followed lasted 3 hours. Sophia wasn't just interested in numbers and methodologies. She wanted to understand the heart of the project. While Helena explained every detail, from the selection process to the post-program follow-up, Sophia took notes in a small gold notebook. "You know what impresses me," Sophia commented, closing her notebook. "It's not just the efficiency of the program, but how you maintained humanity in every process. That's rare in the corporate world." Sophia's proposal was ambitious, to create an international institute based on the Limitless Horizons methodology. The foundation would provide all the necessary financial and structural support, but with one condition: Helena would have to travel to different countries to personally implement the program. "It's a unique opportunity," Elias said after the meeting, "but the decision is yours, Helena. The program will continue here, regardless of what you choose." That night, Helena stayed late at the office thinking about the proposal. In the cafeteria, she talked to the outsourced employees who had always treated her with kindness. At the reception, she hugged the security guards who had seen her arrive nervous on her first day as an intern. Marina organized a small farewell celebration, not in the formal auditorium but in the square in front of the company. Employees from all levels gathered, bringing homemade treats and stories to share. "You have changed my life as much as I could have changed yours," Helena said emotionally, "and this is just the beginning." Elias took the opportunity to make a surprise announcement. The program would be expanded to all companies in the Muller Group, with a budget 3 times larger than the current one. "Helena taught us that investing in people is not an expense, it is a multiplication of possibilities," he declared. "And now we are going to multiply these possibilities throughout the world." On the day of her departure, Helena made sure to stop by her mother's salon first. Donna Clara was helping a client when she arrived, but stopped everything to hug her daughter. "Look at this girl," Donna Clara told the client, with pride brimming in every word. "She started helping here at the salon, and now she's going to travel. The world helping other people make their dreams come true." Helena smiled, arranging some products on the shelves as she had done since she was little. Some things would never change, and she didn't want them to. They were her roots, her safe haven. Before leaving, he hung a new poster on the wall of the hall. "Here was born a dream that now travels the world." Next to it was a photo of the first class of Horizontes Sem Limites, with smiling faces that represented not only success stories, but the beginning of a silent revolution in the corporate world. "Mom," Helena said, hugging Donna Clara one last time before leaving, "you always said that everyone has a special gift. Mine was learning to see the gift in others." Leaving the hall, Helena looked up at the sky over the capital. Her suitcase was packed for her first international trip, but her heart was at peace, because now she knew she was not leaving her work behind. She was spreading seeds in the wind, ready to bloom in new soils. Helena's first international destination was Bogotá, Colombia. Leaving El Dorado Airport on a cloudy morning, she gazed out the taxi window at the city, noticing similarities with her hometown. The same social contradictions, the same repressed dreams, the same possibilities hidden in the alleys and lanes. Sofia Moretti was already waiting for her at the office of the Nuevos Caminos Foundation, a modern building in the city's financial center. The meeting room was full of local executives, all curious to meet the young woman who had revolutionized corporate social inclusion policies. "Señorita Helena," began Don Rafael, president of one of Colombia's largest technology companies, "how can we be sure that your program will work in our reality?" Helena smiled, remembering similar questions from earlier in her journey. Instead of answering directly, she took out her tablet and projected a series of photographs onto the room's screen. "These are pictures of the neighborhood where I grew up," she explained, scrolling through the photos. "And these are from the Ciudad Bolivar neighborhood here in Bogotá, which I visited yesterday. Do you see the similarities? Inequality. Speaks the same language everywhere in the world, but do you know what else speaks the same language? Human potential." The presentation that followed was not about numbers or methodologies. Helena shared real stories. That of Chiara, who went from cleaning assistant to project manager. That of Lucas, who turned down $1 million offer to maintain his social commitment. And that of so many others who have proven that opportunity and the right mentorship can transform lives. "I'm not here to implement a program," she continued. "I'm here to help you create something unique that meets your specific needs, while maintaining the core principles that make a difference: dignity, real opportunity, and a genuine commitment to change." Helena's words touched a nerve. Don Rafael, who was initially skeptical, was the first to speak up. "My company is willing to be the first to implement the program." In the days that followed, Helena immersed herself in the local reality. She visited underprivileged communities, spoke with community leaders, and met talented young people who had never dreamed of an opportunity in the corporate market. In each face, she saw reflections of her own story. One young woman in particular caught her eye. Maria Vanier, 19, sold crafts on the streets to help support her family while she studied programming on her own at a public library. The sparkle in her eyes when she talked about technology reminded Helena of herself. "How did you learn programming?" asked Helena, amazed at the young woman's self-taught knowledge. "With YouTube tutorials and a lot of determination," Maria replied, proudly showing off a simple app she had developed to help other street vendors manage their inventory. That meeting inspired Helena to add a new element to the program, a social technology component, where participants would be encouraged to develop practical solutions to problems in their own communities. News of Limitless Horizons' arrival in Colombia spread quickly. Soon other companies began to show interest. Sofia Moretti watched with satisfaction, seeing her intuition about Helena confirmed. "Do you know what the greatest quality of your program is?" Sofia commented over dinner. "It's not the methodology, nor the impressive results. It's how you manage to make people believe that they are capable of much more than they imagine." One evening, after a particularly intense day of meetings, Helena received a video call from Lucas. The news from the country was encouraging. The program continued to grow, with even better results than before. "You know what's really cool, Helena?" Lucas said excitedly. "Every person who goes through the program takes a little bit of your perspective with them. We learn to see potential where others only see limitations." Those words echoed in Helena's mind as she gazed out over the city from her hotel balcony. Bogotá was just the beginning. In the coming weeks, she would visit Lima, Mexico City, and Santiago. In each place, new stories waited to be discovered, new potentials awaited to be revealed. On her laptop, she opened the document where she kept her travel diary. Among technical notes and plans, there was a sentence she had written on her first day in Colombia. "True social transformation does not happen in luxurious offices, but in the moment when someone looks at a person and sees not only who they are, but who they can become." The next morning, Helena woke up to a message from Maria Vanier. The young craftswoman had been selected for the first class of the program in Bogotá. Attached to the message was a photo, Maria showing her selection. Results to her family, all of them hugging each other, big smiles on their faces. "This is just the beginning," the message said. And Helena knew that, yes, it was just the beginning of another story of transformation, more proof that dreams know no boundaries when they find the fertile ground of opportunity. Implementing the program in Bogotá was just the first step in a journey that would prove even more transformative than Helena had imagined. While the Colombian project gained momentum under the local leadership of Maria Vanier, who quickly emerged as a natural leader, Helena embarked on her next assignment, Lima, Peru. In the Peruvian capital, the challenge was different. Local. Companies were showing interest, but there was cultural resistance to be overcome. In a tense meeting with Peruvian executives, Helena faced direct questions about the viability of the program. "How can we ensure that these young people will adapt to the corporate environment?" asked a human resources executive, expressing a common concern. That's when Helena decided to change her approach. Instead of presenting more data and statistics, she invited the executives to visit Villa El Salvador, one of the poorest communities in Lima. There, amidst dirt roads and simple houses, she introduced them to Jonas, a 20-year-old who had transformed his home into a small coding school for local children. "What do you see here?" Helena asked the executives as they watched Jonas teach programming logic using simple games on donated computers. "I see initiative, leadership, and innovation, exactly the qualities that every company seeks." The visit changed the executive's perspective. What had previously been seen as a charity project became, in their eyes, an opportunity to discover untapped talent. Within days, 3 of Peru's largest technology companies had signed an agreement to implement the program. During her stay in Lima, Helena maintained regular contact with her home country. The news she received was encouraging. Lucas had implemented significant improvements to the original program, including a social entrepreneurship component that was yielding amazing results. Participants aren't just getting jobs, Lucas explained in a video call. They're creating their own initiatives to solve problems in their communities. One night, after a particularly exhausting day of meetings, Helena received an unexpected call from Elias Müller. "We need to talk about something important," he said, in a tone Helena knew well. "The World Bank is interested in transforming Limitless Horizons into a global model for corporate social inclusion." The news was both exciting and frightening. The program that had started as a local initiative could become a global reference. But Helena had one concern. "How do we maintain the essence of the program on such a large scale?" she asked. "That's exactly why I'm calling," Elias replied. "We want you to lead this global expansion process, not just implementing it, but developing leaders who can replicate the program while maintaining its core values." While processing the proposal, Helena received a message from Maria in Colombia. The program in Bogotá had selected its first full class, and the preliminary results exceeded all expectations. Attached to the message was a video of program participants presenting their stories and projects to an audience of local business people. "See," commented Sofia Moretti, who had silently arrived on the hotel balcony where Helena was. "What you started is already bigger than all of us." The next morning, Helena woke up early for a video call with her mother. Donna Clara, always her anchor in moments of decision, listened attentively as her daughter shared her doubts and aspirations. "Daughter," said Donna Clara with her characteristic wisdom, "do you remember when you started helping in the salon? You not only learned, but you taught the other girls. It was always like that with you, learning to multiply." Those words brought clarity. Helena realized that the next step was not just about expanding a program, but about creating a global network of social transformation. Every country, every city, every community had its own José and Marias waiting for an opportunity. In his notebook, he began to sketch out a new structure for the program, a model for training leaders who could adapt the methodology to local realities without losing its essence. It would not be a franchise process, but rather one of pollination, spreading, seeds that would grow according to the soil in which they were planted. The sun was beginning to set over Lima when Helena finally finished her draft. On the first page, she wrote a sentence that summed up her vision. "Social transformation is not about creating a single model, but about awakening the unique potential in every place and in every person." His phone rang again. It was Jonas, the young programming teacher from Villa El Salvador. He had been selected as the local coordinator for the program in Peru. His voice was brimming with enthusiasm as he shared his plans to adapt the project to the local reality. Helena smiled, recognizing in her excitement the same sparkle she had seen in so many other eyes throughout her journey. It was confirmation that Horizonte Sem Limites had become exactly what its name suggested, a program without borders which would continue to grow and transform through the people it touched. Mexico City welcomed Helena with its characteristic, chaotic energy. The local office of the Nuevos Caminos Foundation was buzzing with anticipation for the arrival of limitless horizons in the country. However, on the very first day, Helena realized that she would face a challenge unlike anything she had encountered before. Roberto Sanchez, CEO of one of Mexico's largest technology companies, had implemented his own social inclusion program. Months earlier, his project, while well-intentioned, followed a more traditional approach, focusing solely on technical training and job placement. "Why should we change something that is already working?" Roberto asked during the first meeting. His tone polite but firm. "Our program has already trained more than 100 young people." Helena listened attentively, not only noting the words, but also the reactions of the other executives present. Instead of directly confronting Roberto's resistance, she made an unusual request. "Mr. Sanchez, I would like to meet some of the participants in your program, not to evaluate but to learn. Every successful initiative has something to teach us." The answer surprised Roberto, who had expected competition, not collaboration. In the following days, Helena visited several companies participating in the Mexican program, talking to young people, mentors, and managers. What she discovered was revealing. Despite the good technical results, there was a high attrition rate after the first few months of hiring. During a lunch with program participants, Helena met Isabel Ramirez, a young data analyst who expressed a common concern. "They teach us how to code, but they don't teach us how to navigate the corporate world. Sometimes I feel like an outsider." That conversation brought back memories of her own early challenges at Muller Tech. Helena began to envision a possibility no one had considered. What if, instead of replacing the existing program, Limitless Horizons could complement it? In a special presentation to Roberto and his team, Helena did not talk about competition or change, but about synergy and evolution. "Your program has a solid technical foundation," she began. "What I propose is to add elements that transform this foundation into a complete experience of professional and personal development." To illustrate her proposal, Helena shared success stories from Colombia and Peru, where the program had been adapted to local needs. She showed how Horizons Without Limits' holistic approach not only prepared participants technically, but also empowered them to become agents of change in their own communities. "True success is not just about getting a job," she explained, "but about creating a sustainable cycle of social change." The presentation had a profound impact on Roberto. After a few moments of reflective silence, he made a surprising proposal. "What if we created something new together? A program that combines the best of both initiatives?" In the days that followed, Helena and Roberto worked hard on a new program model. The technical experience of the Mexican team merged with the humanized methodology of Horizontes Sem Limites, creating something truly innovative. Isabel Ramirez was invited to lead a new component of the program, a mentoring module specifically focused on cultural adaptation to the corporate environment. Her personal experience has become a valuable tool to help other young people overcome similar challenges. During this process, Helena received an important call from Sofia Moretti. "The World Bank wants to anticipate the global expansion of the program. They were impressed with your approach in Mexico." The news brought a mix of excitement and apprehension. Global expansion was a dream, but Helena knew that each new territory would bring its own challenges and surprises. However, what was happening in Mexico had taught her a valuable lesson. Sometimes the biggest obstacles can turn into the best opportunities for innovation. One particularly busy night, while reviewing documents in her hotel room, Helena received a message from Lucas. Muller Tech had been invited to present Horizontes Sem Limites at a global social innovation forum in Geneva. "I think we need to prepare ourselves for the next level," Lucas wrote. "The world is watching us." Helena smiled, remembering her first night as a cleaner at that luxurious event where it all began. Who could have imagined that this discreet, young woman who blended into the marble walls would now be leading a silent revolution in the corporate world? Taking out her notebook, Helena began to write down her reflections on the events in Mexico. At the top of the page, a sentence summed up her new understanding. "True innovation is not about creating something completely new, but about finding ways to combine the best that already exists to create something extraordinary." The success of the merger of the programs in Mexico created an even greater wave of international interest. As Helena prepared for her next stop in Santiago, Chile, an unexpected discovery would completely change her perspective on the future of Limitless Horizons. During a routine survey of potential Chilean partners, his team found an intriguing pattern. Several of the companies showing interest in the program had previous connections with Viola Allard, his former rival at Muller Tech. "You have to see this," Marina Gauss said during an urgent video call. "Viola not only worked with these companies, she tried to implement simplified versions of our program after she left Muller." The revelation did not arouse anger in Helena, but curiosity. Why was Viola, who had resisted the program so much, originally now trying to replicate it? The answer would come from an unexpected source. At a cafe in downtown Santiago, Helena met with Carmen Valdez, an executive who had worked with Viola on her most recent projects. "You know what's ironic?" Carmen began, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "Viola changed after she left Muller. She realized that the model you created really worked, but her pride kept her from admitting it publicly." The conversation with Carmen revealed more than Helena had expected. Viola's projects, although less comprehensive, had helped dozens of young people find opportunities in the job market. Even more surprising, she had kept in touch with many of them, acting as an informal mentor. "Maybe it's time to build bridges instead of walls," Helena reflected, remembering her mother's words about how even the most difficult experiences can teach us something valuable. At her hotel that night, Helena made a bold decision. She wrote an email to Viola, not as a rival or a victor, but as someone who shared the same goal of social change. "Dear Viola, I heard about the work you have been doing in Chile. I would like to talk about how we can join forces to expand the impact of our initiatives." The response arrived the next morning, surprisingly fast and equally cordial. Viola was willing not only to talk, but also to share her experiences and learnings from the last few months. The meeting between the two took place on neutral ground, a small coffee shop in Providencia, Santiago. The initial nervousness was replaced by a frank conversation about challenges, mistakes, and successes in implementing corporate social programs. "You were right about a lot of things," Viola admitted, surprising Helena, "especially about the importance of ongoing monitoring and personal development, not just professional development." Helena, in turn, recognized that some of the processes Viola had developed at Muller Tech were really efficient and could be incorporated into the expanded program. Perhaps the next step for Horizontes Sem Limites is precisely that, Helena reflected. Creating a network that unites different initiatives, taking advantage of the best of each one. The conversation went on for hours. When they finally said goodbye, something had changed. They were no longer adversaries, but potential collaborators in a mission greater than their personal differences. Back at the hotel, Helena received a call from Elias Muller. The World Bank had approved funding for the global expansion of the program, but with one interesting condition: the model had to be adaptable enough to incorporate existing local initiatives. "It seems like the universe is confirming our direction," Helena commented, sharing with Elias her conversation with Viola. Elias was silent for a moment before answering. "You know, Helena, when I hired you as an intern, I saw in you someone who could change our company. Now I see someone who is changing the way the corporate world views social responsibility." That night in her journal, Helena wrote about transformation, not just that of the program's participants, but her own. How each obstacle had become a learning experience, each rival a potential ally. A message from her mother interrupted her thoughts. "Daughter, the salon is full of young people wanting to know how to participate in the program. I think we need a branch of Limitless Horizons here in the neighborhood." Helena smiled, imagining how her life had changed since the days when she was organizing products on the shelves of her salon. But some things remained the same: the desire to make a difference, the ability to see potential where others saw limitations, and the certainty that social transformation is a collective journey. He scheduled a new meeting for the following week, a meeting with leaders of different social programs in Latin America. The goal was no longer just to expand Horizontes Sem Limites, but to create a network of initiatives that, together, could have an even greater impact. The Global Social Innovation Forum in Geneva was not just another corporate event. In the IEC elegant ballroom of the International Conference Center, business leaders, representatives of international organizations, and agents of social change from around the world gathered to discuss the future of corporate inclusion. Helena, wearing a navy blue suit that Donna Clara had insisted on having personally tailored, surveyed the room with a mixture of déjà vu and admiration. This time, however, she wasn't there to clean glasses or arrange tables. She was about to be the day's main speaker. "Nervous?" Sophia Moretti asked, adjusting the lapel microphone on Helena's blazer. "Oddly enough, no," she replied, smiling. When you know exactly why you're doing something, fear gives way to purpose. The auditorium was packed. In the front row, familiar faces brought comfort. Elias Muller, Lucas, Maria Vanier from Colombia, Jonas from Peru, Isabel from Mexico, and surprisingly, Viola Allard, who had accepted the invitation to participate in the panel discussion. "Welcome to the future of corporate social transformation," Helena began, her firm voice echoing through the auditorium. "But before we talk about the future, I need to tell you a story that began in a beauty salon on the outskirts of the capital." Over the next hour, Helena not only presented impressive results from limitless horizons, but also revealed her new vision, the creation of a global network of social inclusion programs where different initiatives could collaborate and learn from each other. "The true potential for transformation lies not in a single program," she explained, "but in the union of different approaches, experiences, and perspectives. Each community has its own needs, each culture its own ways of solving problems. Our mission is to create bridges between these realities." The presentation included success stories not only from Horizons Without Limits, but also from other programs, including projects developed by Viola in Chile. It was a practical demonstration of how collaboration could amplify social impact. During the panel discussion that followed, something extraordinary happened. Viola, in sharing her experiences, made a startling revelation. "My biggest mistake at Muller Tech was seeing social inclusion as a power play," she admitted, her voice thick with restrained emotion. "It took losing everything to understand that real transformation only happens when we put our ego aside and focus on the greater purpose." Viola's moment of vulnerability had a profound impact on her audience. Executives who had previously viewed social programs as mere corporate obligations began to understand their true transformative potential. During her coffee break, Helena was surprised by an elegant lady who introduced herself as Diane Werner, director of one of the largest philanthropic foundations in Europe. "Your approach is exactly what we were looking for," Diane said. "We would like to implement the program in African and Asian countries, but on one condition: we want you to personally lead the cultural adaptation process." The proposal was tempting, but Helena had learned not to make hasty decisions. Instead, she proposed something different. "What if, instead of me leading personally, we create an international council of local leaders, people who know their communities deeply and can adapt the program to their specific realities?" The idea resonated not only with Diane, but with other forum participants. By the end of the day, representatives from 12 different countries had expressed interest in being part of this global network for social transformation. During the closing cocktail party, Helena found a quiet moment on one of the balconies of the convention center. From there, she could see the lights of Geneva reflected in Lake Geneva. Her phone vibrated with a message from her mother. "Daughter, I just watched your talk online. Do you know what makes me most proud? Seeing that you are still that girl who organized products in the salon, thinking about how to make a difference in other people's lives." The message brought tears to her eyes, but they were tears of gratitude. At that moment, Elias Muller joined her at the counter. "You know, Helena," he began, gazing out at the illuminated city, "when I first saw you at that event, I thought I had found someone special. But you have proven to be so much more than that. You have become a catalyst for global change." Helena smiled, remembering that first night, the beige uniform that blended in with the marble walls, the spilled wine that would change her life. "Real change," she replied, "happens when we stop seeing people as problems to be solved and start seeing them as solutions waiting for an opportunity." The event was over, but it was just the beginning of a new phase. On the flight back to her home country, Helena began to outline the next steps. In her notebook, a new sentence summed up her vision. "Horizons are not limits, they are invitations to explore new paths together." Returning to her home country after the Geneva Forum did not mean a break for Helena. On the contrary, It was time to turn all those ideas and commitments into concrete actions. Muller Tech had become a true hub of social innovation, with limitless horizons serving as an inspiration for initiatives around the world. On a particularly busy morning, Helena gathered her expanded team at the program's new headquarters, an entire building dedicated to social impact projects. The space, once an old industrial warehouse, had been renovated to maintain its original structure, but adapted to accommodate young people from different communities. "Our mission is evolving," Helena explained to the team. "We are no longer just a corporate inclusion program. We are becoming a global platform for social transformation." Lucas, now the program's operations director, presented the first results of the expansion. More than 2,000 young people directly impacted, hundreds of partner companies, and, most importantly, a multiplier effect that began to change corporate culture in different countries. "But you know what's most impressive?" he said, projecting an interactive map. "Each dot on this map represents a participant who has become a mentor to other young people. It's a virtuous cycle of transformation." The meeting was interrupted by an important video call. Maria Vanier from Colombia, Jonas from Peru, and Isabel from Mexico wanted to share some news. They had created, on their own initiative, a Latin American cross-mentoring network where participants from different countries exchanged experiences and knowledge. "It's like a family without borders," Maria explained, her face lighting up with excitement on the screen. The young leader's spontaneous initiative brought about an important realization. The program had outgrown its creators. It now had a life of its own, evolving in ways that even Helena had not anticipated. During lunch, Helena decided to do something she hadn't done in a long time. She visited her mother's salon. Donna Clara was busy with a client when she arrived, but she stopped everything to hug her daughter. "Look who showed up," joked Donna Clara. "The international executive still remembers the way home." Helena smiled, automatically picking up a fallen bottle of shampoo and replacing it on the shelf. The familiar gesture brought a rush of memories and a sudden idea. "Mom," she began, watching the movement in the room, "what if we transformed this space into something bigger?" In the following weeks, Donna Clara's salon underwent a transformation. While maintaining its original function, it gained an adjoining space that became the first Horizonte Sem Limites community center. There, young people from the region could have access to computers, mentoring, and professional guidance. "It's like closing a cycle," commented Helena during the inauguration of the space, "returning to the roots to create new beginnings." The pilot project in the salon soon became a model to be replicated. Other small businesses in underprivileged communities began to become support points for the program, creating a capillary network of opportunities. In the midst of all this expansion, Helena received an unexpected call from Viola Allard. After her participation in the Geneva Forum, she had been invited to lead social projects in several Latin American countries. "I need your help," Viola admitted, her voice holding a humility that had seemed impossible before. "I want to do this right this time." Viola's request for help not only surprised Helena, but also provided a unique opportunity to demonstrate in practice the power of collaboration over competition. "How about we start by creating an international advisory committee?" Helena suggested. "We can combine your corporate experience with our field knowledge." The proposal resulted in the creation of the Global Council of Social Leaders, a diverse group that included everyone from seasoned executives to young community leaders. Its first meeting was held virtually, connecting people from different continents around a common goal. During the meeting, Elias Müller made an announcement that took everyone by surprise. Muller Tech was creating an investment fund dedicated exclusively to social startups, led by program participants. "The next step is not just getting people into the workforce," he explained, "but giving them the tools to create their own paths to impact." At the end of that intense day, Helena returned home via the long route, which included a stop at the old event hall where it all began. The place had changed, as had she, but the essence remained the same, the search for transformation through real opportunities. In his notebook before going to sleep, he wrote a reflection. Sometimes we need to fly high to realize that our roots do not hold us back. They give us the strength we need to reach new horizons. 1 year after the Geneva Forum, Limitless, Horizons had become a global phenomenon. What had begun as a corporate inclusion program was now being studied in universities, replicated on different continents, and recognized as one of the most innovative models of social transformation in the world. One particularly momentous morning, Helena was in her office at Muller Tech when she received some surprising news. The program had been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. The notification came via a formal email from the Norwegian Academy, but it was the subsequent message from Elias Müller that really touched her. "You have not only transformed our company," he wrote, "you are changing the way the world views corporate social responsibility." The Nobel nomination, although honorable, was not what mattered most to Helena. That same afternoon, she had an engagement that she considered much more significant, the graduation of the program's 100th class in the country, which would take place in the main auditorium of Muller Tech. The event was organized differently from previous graduations. This time, the participants themselves took the lead, transforming the ceremony into a true celebration of stories of transformation. Among the graduates was Julia, a young woman who had started as a cleaning assistant in the same event hall where Helena had begun her journey. Now Julia was graduating as a software developer and was already leading a social technology project in her community. "Do you know what I learned from the program?" Julia said in her graduation speech. "That our origin is not our destiny. It is our strength. Every challenge we face gives us a unique perspective to solve problems." During the ceremony, a live broadcast connected the celebration with other program centers around the world. On the screen, smiling faces of participants from Colombia, Peru, Mexico, and now also from South Africa, India, and Indonesia joined in the celebration. It was at this moment that Helena announced a new phase of the program, the creation of the Horizontes University, a higher education institution entirely dedicated to training leaders in social innovation. "We don't just want to bring people into the workforce," she explained. "We want to train the next generation of social change makers." The university project was ambitious, but it was born with international support. Large technology, companies, philanthropic foundations, and even governments committed to making it viable. The most surprising thing was the announcement that Viola Allard would be one of the academic coordinators. "Sometimes we need to lose ourselves to find our true purpose," Viola said during the project presentation. "This program has taught me that leadership is not about power, it's about service." The news about the university quickly spread throughout the corporate world. Other companies began to seek out Horizontes Sem Limites, not only to implement inclusion programs, but to completely rethink their social impact strategies. Amidst all this activity, Helena maintained a special ritual. Every Friday afternoon, she would visit the community center that operated next to her mother's salon. There, amid the smell of shampoo and the sound of hair dryers, young dreamers developed their social impact projects. "You turned my little salon into an incubator of dreams," commented Donna Clara, proudly observing the movement in the space. It was during one of these visits that Helena received a call from Sofia Moretti. The Nuevos Caminos Foundation was organizing a special meeting in Madrid, bringing together leaders of social programs from all continents. "We want to create a global social impact protocol," Sofia explained, "and we want you to lead that process." The proposal was challenging: to develop international guidelines for social transformation programs that could be adapted to different cultural and economic contexts. It was not just about expanding limitless horizons, but about creating a methodology that could be used by any organization committed to real social change. "It's time to turn our experience into a lasting legacy," Helena reflected, sharing the news with her team. Lucas, who had been with us throughout the journey from the beginning, made an insightful observation. "You know what's amazing? We started out wanting to change the corporate world, and we ended up discovering that the corporate world also needed this change." That evening, after an intense day of meetings and planning, Helena found a moment of quiet in her office. The wall, a photo gallery, told the story of the program, from the first class to the most recent international projects. Each image represented not only a success story, but a life transformed. In his notebook, he began to sketch out the fundamental principles that would guide the global protocol. At the top of the page, he wrote a sentence that summed up everything he had learned. Social transformation is not about creating individual heroes, but about awakening the transformative potential that exists in every community. The sun was setting over the capital as Helena finally put away her notebook. The next day, a new chapter would begin. Limitless Horizons was no longer just a program. It had become a global movement for change, proving that when opportunity meets purpose, there is no limit to the impact that can be achieved. The meeting in Madrid brought together more than 200 leaders of social programs from 50 different countries. The historic Congress Palace, with its centuries-old arches and colorful stained-glass windows, seemed the perfect setting for a moment that promised to make history in corporate social transformation. Helena, when she went up on stage to open the event, couldn't help but notice how her life had changed. This time there was no nervousness, just the calm certainty of someone who knows her purpose deeply. "We are here," she began, "not to create rigid rules, but to establish principles that can guide true social transformation in any context." The protocol that Helena presented in the following days was revolutionary in its simplicity. It was based on 3 fundamental pillars: dignity as a non-negotiable principle, real opportunity instead of welfare, and a commitment to multiplying impact. During the workshop, some impressive stories emerged. A community leader from India shared how she had adapted the Limitless Horizons model to work with traditional artisans. A South African entrepreneur shared how the program had transformed his company into a hub for social innovation. It was during one of these sessions that something unexpected happened. A young participant from Uganda, Grace Akello, stood up to share her experience. "In my community, we have adapted the program to include not just young people, but their entire families. We have found that when we transform one person, we transform an entire circle of relationships." Grace's observation sparked a significant shift in the discussions. The concept of circles of transformation began to take shape. The idea that each person impacted by the program becomes a center of change in their own community. Helena immediately recognized the power of this perspective. It was exactly what had happened in her own story, starting with her mother's salon and expanding in ever-widening waves of impact. During a break, she received a video call from Lucas with news. The first class at Horizontes University had started classes with students from 15 different countries. "And there's more," Lucas said, barely containing his excitement. "That social technology project of Julia's. It was selected for an international accelerator program. She's going to present it in Silicon Valley next month." The good news kept coming. Sophia Moretti announced that the World Bank had approved a special fund to replicate the Limitless Horizons model in developing countries. Viola Allard, for her part, had managed to establish partnerships with leading universities in Latin America to research and document the impact of the program. On the last day of the meeting in Madrid, Helena proposed a different activity. Instead of more formal presentations, she organized a story-sharing circle. Each participant was asked to share not their greatest successes, but their greatest learning moments. "Because it is in challenges," she explained, "that we discover our true capacity for transformation." The stories that emerged from that circle were deeply human, stories of doubts overcome, of prejudices overcome, of moments of almost giving up that became turning points. Elias Muller, who had arrived quietly for the closing of the event, shared his own story of transformation. "When I met Helena, I thought I was giving someone an opportunity. Little did I know that I was about to learn one of the greatest lessons of my business life, that true leadership is about creating the conditions for others to shine." By the end of the meeting, the Global Social Impact Protocol was in place, but it was much richer and deeper than anyone had initially imagined. It was not just a set of guidelines, but a collective commitment to sustainable transformation. On her last night in Madrid, Helena found a moment of solitude on the hotel terrace. The starry sky of the Spanish capital seemed to reflect the countless points of light that the program had lit around the world. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother. Donna Clara had sent a photo of the community center. A group of young people were presenting their social impact projects to local investors. "See, daughter," the message said, "the circles keep expanding." Helena smiled, taking out her inseparable notebook. On the last page, she wrote what would be the fundamental principle of the global protocol. Social transformation is not a straight line, but an ever-expanding circle. Each person touched becomes a new center of transformation, creating ripples that spread infinitely. The gentle winds of Madrid carried the promise of new horizons. The program that had begun as a misunderstanding at a gala event was now a global force for change. But for Helena, the most important thing was not the impressive numbers or the international recognition. It was knowing that every day, somewhere in the world, someone was discovering that their dreams had no limits. 5 years had passed since that first night in the Mueller Tech event hall. Limitless Horizons was now present in more than 70 countries, had directly transformed more than 50,000 lives, and had indirectly impacted millions of people through transformation circles. On a special spring morning, Helena found herself back in the same room where it all began. The space had been completely transformed to host the first Limitless Horizons Global Leaders Summit. The marble walls that had once made her feel invisible now featured a photo exhibit telling stories of transformation from around the world. "It's surreal to be here again," she commented to Elias Müller, who had just arrived for the opening of the event. "Even more surreal is seeing how one person can spark such profound change," he replied, watching the participants begin to arrive. The meeting brought together not only program coordinators and mentors, but especially those who had become agents of change in their own communities. Among them was Maria Vanier from Colombia, who now runs one of the largest social innovation centers in Latin America. "Saben lo más hermoso de todo esto?" said Maria during her presentation. "Each person who goes through the program on the ground transforms their own life, becoming a beacon of hope for others." The event's schedule included workshops, panel discussions, and strategic planning sessions, but the most anticipated moment was Helena's announcement about the program's future. Rumors were circulating about a major development that would completely change the landscape of corporate social transformation. During lunch, Helena escaped for a few minutes to visit her mother's salon, now transformed into an educational complex that included not only the original community center, but also an incubator for social projects and a co-working space. "Who would have thought, right?" smiled Donna Clara, serving coffee to her daughter in her small room at the back of the salon. "We started by arranging products on the shelves, and look where we ended up." Back at the event, Helena found a surprise. Viola Allard had organized a special panel with all the converted critics, executives who had initially resisted the program and were now its biggest supporters. "Boundless Horizons didn't just transform our companies," Viola explained to the audience. "It transformed our understanding of what true business success means." In the afternoon, it was time for the big announcement. The auditorium was packed, with in-person attendees and hundreds of others connecting virtually from different parts of the world. Helena took the stage accompanied by Sophia Moretti and Elias Müller. "Horizons Without Limits started as an inclusion program," Helena began. "It has evolved into a global movement and is now ready for its next step. We will create the first global network of universities focused exclusively on social innovation and sustainable development." The project, she explained, went far, beyond the initial Horizons University. It was a network of educational institutions that would be established on different continents, all connected by a common methodology, but adapted to local realities. "Each campus will be a center of excellence in different aspects of social transformation," she continued. "Most importantly, they will be truly inclusive institutions, where talent and commitment to change will be the only criteria for admission." The announcement was met with a standing ovation, representatives of governments, companies, and international organizations immediately began expressing interest in participating in the initiative. Lucas, who was watching everything from the front row, couldn't hold back his tears. He, who had followed every step of the journey, could clearly see how that moment represented the realization of a dream much bigger than anyone could have imagined. At the end of the day, when most of the guests had left, Helena remained in the hall for a few moments. She walked to the same spot where years before she had bent down to clean up a spilled wine glass.